I'm so ashamed of my crime. This will never end for me. I'll never forget what I've done, and no matter what, I'll always try to be a good person, whether I'm in prison or not.
This is Valerine Kaliohano-Niddle, who's facing charges for first-degree negligent homicide and first-degree negligent injury in Hawaii. Valerine Kaliohano-Niddle was a regular woman until May 2009, when her life took a dark turn after she caused a tragic accident while driving under the influence. She had a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit. As she raced down the road, her speeding truck lurched through a red light, colliding with a car carrying 17-month-old Aaliyah Braden and her mother, Mavelyn. The impact was catastrophic. Aaliyah lost her life in the accident, and her mother was left with critical injuries. It was a heartbreaking scene that left everyone in shock and disbelief. Outside the court, Wayne Braden tearfully expressed how much he missed his precious daughter while clutching her blanket.
Her scent is gone. You can't smell her anymore. She's gone.
Although the loss was heartbreaking, the events in court will melt the hardest of hearts. In court, Wayne Braden, Aaliyah's father, held a photo of his beloved daughter with a heavy heart. He expressed his grief and anger at the court. Valerine Kaliohano-Niddle, overwhelmed by guilt and shame, addressed the court through tearful eyes.
We'll work tirelessly to keep drunk drivers off the road.
She pleaded guilty to her charges, expressing remorse and devastation. She acknowledged the pain and sorrow she had inflicted on the Braden family. It was a gut-wrenching moment as she begged for forgiveness with tears rolling down her cheeks, knowing she could never undo the harm she had caused. But what happened next was truly extraordinary. In an act of unbelievable compassion, Wayne Braden stood up, approached Valerine, and embraced her. The courtroom was filled with tears as the power of forgiveness and understanding took center stage. Even the judge, Elizabeth Strantz, was moved by this exceptional display of humanity. In the end, Valerine Kaliohano-Niddle received a sentence of 10 years in prison for her actions. She was also asked to pay restitution costs for medical expenses and funeral arrangements. Valerine Kaliohano-Niddle is now living a sober life and swore her commitment to preventing others from making the same mistakes. Valerine Kaliohano-Niddle's actions were because of her intoxication, and her apology seemed sincere. However, some convicts are rather shocked by the reaction of the victims' families to their apology, like in the case of Trey Alexander Relford. This is Trey Alexander Relford, who's facing charges for murder in Lexington, Kentucky. Trey Relford played a part in the tragic death of pizza delivery driver Salahuddin Jitmood. In April of 2015, Salahuddin Jitmood, a Pizza Hut delivery driver, was brutally stabbed to death and robbed at an apartment complex in Lexington. It was a senseless act of violence that shook the neighborhood. Although 3 people were involved in the crime, Relford was the only one indicted. During the hearing, Relford pleaded guilty to complicity to murder, complicity to robbery, and attempted evidence tampering. If convicted at trial, he faced a potential death penalty, but he accepted responsibility for his actions and sought forgiveness. He showed genuine remorse and apologized to the victim's family for his actions.
I'm sorry about what happened that day. But I do applaud you, because it takes a powerful man to know that somebody has hurt them and do what you get up there and say what you just said. I have a child. She is 4. And I can imagine the hurt, the pain from losing her. Just touch it like I do. So when I thank you for your forgiveness.
Abdul Munim Sombat Jitmood, the victim's father, did something extraordinary. He forgave Relford and embraced him, showcasing the spirit of Islam. Abdul Munim explained that forgiveness is considered the greatest act of charity in Islam.
Forgiveness is the greatest gift or charity in Islam. I have to pour myself out to forgive someone that have wronged our family.
He believed that forgiving Relford was opening the door to God's forgiveness. In a heartfelt moment, he encouraged Relford to embrace a new chapter of a good life.
Blame the devil who misguiding you and misleading you to do such a horrible crime. No, I don't blame you. I'm not angry at you at all.
The courtroom was filled with astonishment as Abdul Munim Jitmud took the stand to deliver a victim impact statement. He expressed that he held no anger toward Relford, but instead directed his frustration at the devil who had influenced him to commit such a heinous crime. Moved by compassion, he also forgave Relford on behalf of his son and his late wife.
Forgive you on behalf of Salahuddin and his mother.
The unexpected forgiveness in the courtroom touched the hearts of everyone present. Even the judge was not left out.
I think this may be a good time to take a break. Thank you.
There was no dry eye in the gallery. It was an extraordinary display of compassion and mercy. Even Relford's mother expressed gratitude for the Jitmud family's forgiveness and offered her condolences.
I am deeply sorry for your loss. And I thank you so much for comforting me and my family, because I was shocked.
Despite the act of forgiveness, the prosecutor emphasized that it did not absolve Relford of his responsibility. The evidence pointed to his significant involvement in planning the robbery and carrying out the murder. He even took steps to avoid detection by downloading an app to conceal his cell phone number. In the end, Judge Kimberly Bunnell sentenced Relford to 31 years in prison. For most people, this was a heartbreaking moment. However, this wasn't the only time a convict begged for forgiveness. There was the case of Luis Prinzo. This is Luis Prinzo, who's facing charges for killing 2 people while driving intoxicated. In 2012, Prinzo, just 24 years old at the time, was driving under the influence of painkillers, anti-anxiety medications, and marijuana. He made a series of bad choices that led to a violent crash on Interstate 95, taking the lives of Meredith Smith and another teenager, Lane Burnside. 2 others were also injured in the accident. Meredith was a shining star with dreams of attending Princeton University, but those dreams were shattered by Prinzo's reckless actions. As the trial unfolded, emotions ran high.
This accident took from me all of the milestones: her college graduation, her first position in a career, any marriage or children.
She wanted the judge to see the face of the young life that was stolen away too soon. It was a heartbreaking moment that left no dry eye in the courtroom. But then came Prinzo, the man behind the wheel that fateful night. He stood up and read a prepared statement.
Not a day goes by that I don't suffer from the guilt. It is such a horrible situation, and there's nothing I could do to fix it or make it right. I know that I'm going to be sentenced to a lengthy prison sentence. I accept that, just as I've accepted the responsibility for my actions.
Despite their immeasurable pain and loss, the victims' families showed incredible compassion and forgiveness. They didn't demand the maximum sentence for Prinzo, but trusted the judge to make the right decision.
We understand that people make bad decisions, and we get it. And he'll forever be in our prayers, his family. And but by the same token, there has to be a sentence. There has to be a punishment.
As the trial came to an end, Smith's father, Robert, expressed his appreciation for the community's support and acknowledged Prinzo's apology. He recognized that accidents happen, but couldn't ignore the burden of grief his family had to carry. The judge finally delivered the verdict. Luis Prinzo IV was sentenced to 16 years in prison, with an additional 19 years of probation. Upon release, he was also ordered to pay $8,000 in restitution and faced a 5-year driver's license revocation. Prinzo's case may have been a result of too many drugs in his system. However, The same can't be said for Eric Windhurst. This is Eric Windhurst, who's facing charges for murder in New Hampshire. Eric Windhurst's life took a dark turn back in 1985 when he committed a heinous crime that remained unsolved for several years. It all started when Melanie Paquette confided in him that Daniel Paquette, her mother's ex-husband, was molesting her. Filled with fear and concern for Melanie's safety, Windhurst made a grave decision. Together, they set off to confront Daniel Paquette, armed with a gun. Unfortunately, the confrontation turned fatal, with Windhurst shooting Paquette from a distance. For about 20 years, the case remained unsolved. However, Melanie later confessed to the police about their involvement in the crime. During the hearing, Windhurst spoke deliberately, expressing shame and remorse for his actions. He recounted the events of 1985.
I am so sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. But I am. I'm so ashamed of my crime. This will never end for me. I'll never forget what I've done, and no matter what, I'll always try to be a good person, whether I'm in prison or not.
Windhurst said Melanie feared her abuser would harm her family if he discovered she had spoken out. Nevertheless, he apologized for playing God. He confirmed that he should have driven Melanie to the police chief's house instead. In the end, Windhurst pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, hoping his words of remorse and sorrow would somehow alleviate the pain he caused. But even his attorney, Mark Sisti, acknowledged that forgiveness from the Paquette family might be a distant dream.
If you think, and this parole board thinks for a minute, that the bill is paid and justice was served, hell no. There's one place for you, and that's back in prison.
Windhurst was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole. Melanie herself served 15 months in prison for felony hindering apprehension. However bad you think Eric Windhurst's case was, it can't be compared to the sad case of Samantha Davis. This is Samantha Davis, who's facing charges for homicide in Cincinnati. 32 years old, Samantha Davis found herself at the center of a tragic incident in 2016. You see, Samantha was driving her pickup truck on Interstate 275 in Blue Ash when things took a turn for the worse. She lost control of her vehicle while exiting the highway onto I-71, and her truck collided with a cement barrier. The impact was so severe that Samantha was ejected from her truck. Here's the sad part. Her truck flipped over the barrier and plummeted onto a car traveling on I-71 below. The crash claimed the lives of two innocent individuals, Sabrina Miller, 41, and her mother, Sandra Tell, 67, who were on their way to the University of Cincinnati's graduation ceremony. Tragic doesn't even begin to describe it. To make matters worse, Samantha admitted to being under the influence of drugs at the time of the accident. Not only did she have to live with the guilt of causing such devastation, but she also had to face the legal consequences of her actions. Samantha faced 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide and 2 counts of aggravated drug possession. During the trial, the teary-eyed Samantha Davis seized the opportunity to address the court and apologize for her actions' tragic consequences.
I want to apologize to both your family and mine for the ripple effect this has caused. I can't pretend to know the pain or hardships you have all endured these last 3 years. Although I may have my own, my mind is always flashing back to you and reminding myself that regardless how bad I might think I have it, you guys definitely have it worse.
In an emotional moment, the victim's family accepted her apology and forgave her.
Losing a child in any case is painful. My children have lost both their mother and their sister, and every day it is difficult. I live with the knowledge that I will not get to hold her or to hug her or to hear her say to me, "Hey, Dad," when she greeted me. I want Miss Davis to know I do not hate her. I have forgiven her. I think justice, however, needs to be served.
I've gone through many emotions in regards to Samantha Davis. I have compassion for her children and family, and I would never wish on anyone what she's going through. I also feel that there needs to be consequences for what her actions have caused.
In 2019, she was convicted and sentenced to 8 years in prison. Justice had been served, or so it seemed. Fast forward to 2021, and Samantha's world turned upside down again. The First District Court of Appeals overturned her convictions on a technicality, They found that a crash reconstructionist police officer had given expert opinions during her trial without providing a written report to the defense beforehand. The court believed this deprived Samantha of effective assistance of counsel, leading to the reversal of her convictions. With her convictions thrown out, Samantha faced a new trial, but decided to take a different path. Earlier this month, she accepted a plea agreement in which she pleaded guilty to the charges. Hamilton County Common Pleas Court Judge Leslie Gies upheld the terms of the agreement, sentencing Samantha to 5 years and 4 months in prison. She was given credit for the 43 months she had already served, which means she'll spend an additional 21 months behind bars. If you thought these actions were astonishing, you'd be shocked at this video of the craziest convicts ever in court.